Moving into our second topic. Today will be the ABCs of banking, finance, insurance, and capital flows. We'll be discussing about how Cambodia is put into as a regional context, especially for its banking and finance. And I will be joined by one of Cambodia's leading bankers, Mr. Hoon, who is the director and shareholders representative of Phillip Bank, Cambodia. Mr. Ong started working in the financial sector in 1977. For 25 years, he's been through all aspects of commercial banking before expanding his career into Cambodia. Now, thank you so much for being with us, Mr. Ong. It's really fantastic to have you here.
Good morning.
Now, I know more than your 4 decades of experience in the banking and financial industry, you obviously are very familiar with the Mekong region, taking assignments all around Myanmar and Thailand, obviously now to Cambodia. Can you briefly tell us why you've decided to anchor yourself here rather than other posts?
First is the political stability. It assures me personal security. Second is that Cambodia is at this stage of economic development. There are a lot of things that needs to be done and a lot of things can be done. And that gives you the excitement. The third is the population. More than 60% of the people are below age 35. And the other one is the use of English language. You will not get lost in the city not knowing the local language. And of course, the convenience of living in Cambodia. You have a lot of choices for condominiums. They've got fairly good golf courses. They've got a good number of supermarkets. There was a country where I lived in, there was only one supermarket. Yeah. And of course, there are a good number of cinemas, like Tom Cruise's Top Gun was screened at the same time when the world was screening it. So life in Cambodia is not difficult.
Yeah.
I would challenge anybody who says that it's a hardship posting.
No, I agree. I think it's definitely one myth that we can bust is, that Cambodia is, when you get here, it's very similar actually to some of the Western countries where I grew up in. And sometimes even actually better. I find the internet, for example, sometimes in my home is better than in Australia. So
Yes.
I agree with you definitely on that. Now, in terms of, I guess, from a banking and finance point of view, how would you compare Cambodia to other emerging economies, especially in terms of remittance, for example?
So the most significant thing is that it is a dollarized economy. So investors putting the money in avoid exchange risk. Of course, the other main advantage is there's hardly any exchange control. So you can bring in investments, you can bring out your profits. No, there's no issue in bringing them in and out. And of course, there's also a double tax agreement with various countries. Amongst them is Singapore. And of course, there's a foreign ownership, as Michael had mentioned. The foreigners can own 100% of many companies, except for land ownership, where only locals are allowed to own land. However, the government has allowed a trustee law that allows banks like ourselves to start trustee companies that allows foreigners to own land and register it in the name of the trustee company. And on the banking side, I think we are very good to have a proactive regulator. For example, they are at the moment reviewing the capital adequacy framework. Now that is to ensure that the soundness of the banking system is improved and maintained at least. So that I think is a very positive thing. And of course, they've introduced Barcom, which is the equivalent of Pay Now or Pay Do It, that facilitates domestic transfers of funds. That I think it encourages a lot of transactions in the market without using cash. Yeah. And of course, they're also introducing the common shared switch, where customers of one bank can use the ATM of another bank. So that is a lot of convenience to the customers.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some of the points. The dollarized economy, I think, is, obviously with a political, currency change. But that said, the real is also very stable in terms of the dollar.
Yes, the real is about 4,000 to $1. It's been there for a longest time.
So yeah, even actually in local or in US, I still feel it is a very stable currency for both.
Yes, and of course, the government is trying to encourage the use of local currency, and banks are now required to lend at least 10% of our loans in real, which is a right step in the right direction. Because otherwise, it will be quite difficult to manage a monetary policy when you have got, when the currency in circulation is largely in US dollars.
Yeah, that's definitely been an increasing influence since I've been here. Is the amount of real that is being used, especially on the lower amounts.
Yes, it's encouraged. In fact, it's difficult to find a $1 or $5 denominations in the economy now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, for the benefit of our audience that may be considering setting up a business or investing into a project in Cambodia, is there anything that you can share or any insights, advice, especially on the banking and finance side of things?
I think if we talk about which sector of the economy to go in, as a bank, we will be looking positively on investments in health. Where at the moment, we've got 3 foreign-owned hospitals, 1 Thai, 1 Japanese. Thai, Japanese, no, I think it's only 2 foreign-owned inpatient hospitals. I think there can be room for more. Okay, and there are 3 medical centers that are owned largely by Singaporeans, and there are specialists flying in regularly. And I think maybe that's not quite enough, because you see that there's the demand for higher standards of medical care is there. Now, the other I would say would be education. As a bank, we'll be quite open to supporting investments in education. Okay, there are a lot of schools here, but the standards and the fees charged are varying quite significantly. I think with the competition, it will definitely be good for the country and the people. And of course, there is a growing awareness of food security. As Michael has mentioned, I think agriculture is one promising area in the country. I think, especially for a country like Singapore, we definitely need to look at food security more seriously now. And I think this is where Cambodia can come in quite strongly. And of course, with the price of oil hitting the roof, I think renewable energy is something which the bank will look at quite positively. And of course, the usual commercial activities.
And also for foreigners, when they do come here and they want to set up their banking, for example, most people might not know, but Phillip Bank believes Cambodia's only fully owned Singapore commercial bank. Is that correct?
That is correct. Okay. That is correct.
And for Singaporeans who do want to open their bank account here, do they have any sort of benefits of when they do come? Are you guys a certain sort of a way, the way you operate your bank?
Well, I think the convenient thing for Singapore investors is that we are also Singapore operated, and you can open your account through my office in Singapore without having to come over here. Yeah, and of course, the other advantage is that being Singaporean, we speak the same language. We understand the way we do things. And there are certain things we don't do, and there are certain things we do. So there's a kind of a shared value system. So that is an advantage. Okay. But to give advantage to Singaporeans, I think we got to be careful, because we can't be discriminating against the Cambodian. We are largely a Cambodian bank, but Singaporean owned.
I didn't realize that. So you could open an account, a Cambodian account in Singapore at your office.
Well, okay. My staff in Singapore office will verify the signature, scan it over, email to me, we'll open the account. And then thereafter, they'll send the hard copies to me, instead of you coming here to verify your signature.
I think that's a fantastic product, and some of our audience might be able to definitely take up. Now, just moving before we conclude this topic, we have already touched on some of the investment or business opportunities that you believe. You speak about health a lot. Can you explain a little bit more why you think the health would be a fantastic area to go into here?
Well, that's a personal experience. I had a cycling accident, and I broke my collarbone and 4 of my ribs. And my doctor tells me, if you puncture your lungs with the broken ribs, I think nothing can help you over here. So we can think of all kinds of possible emergencies that can happen over here. So as a foreigner, I think at least my family likes to be comforted. Don't know that, at least the husband or the boyfriend or whatever in town is safe and can be looked after. So that's speaking from a personal experience.
I think there's some definitely takeaways there for our audience to consider. Thank you so much for your fantastic banking and finance advice and interests. Some of the key points, again, is I'd like to summarize for our attendees is that living in Cambodia really is an international experience. Don't be afraid that when you come here, there won't be, your favorite products or, the supermarkets or even movies, as you've touched on. These are all options for you.